I suppose having read 2 volumes of Sakamoto Days, I am ready to like give my final thoughts on this series. It's essentially a cheap knockoff of Spy Family, right? There is my review in a nutshell. There's my perspective. There's my hot take. It's just a cheap Spy Family knockoff, right down to a major character being able to read people's minds. Like it's like they had no real idea of what they wanted to do for their own series. They're just like, oh, well, we'll just take what Spy Family did. Like, we'll just take Spy Family and we'll strip away everything that makes it unique and fun and creative and appealing to people, and just kind of put out this middling series that has really. Real talk, basically nothing going for it. To the point where, like, within a couple of chapters, like, you have, like, a terrorist group that's trying to prevent a cancellation of a manga. It's like, it's like the creators knew. They knew that, oh man, our series is gonna get axed if we don't step things up in a big way. And to be fair, like after the first couple of chapters, after you get over like the similarities to Spy Family, you start to see it like going off in its own directions. You start appreciating the fact that like everybody knows what's going on, and that like the wife is a normal person, and that like it's trying to do its own thing. It's establishing a handful of other characters that don't really have Spy Family counterparts. It's establishing like its own thing. By the end of volume 2, it's establishing its own premise and stuff like that, but like it really is one of those situations where it's like way too little and way too late, because this thing really had kind of a rough start with like the protagonist being established and the guy that used to like look up to him coming to kill him. Like you would think this would be like some big emotional moment, but it just kind of happens. They fight, and then like Mr. Sakamoto, the former hitman of the underworld, his insane complicated backstory is that like he went into a store one day and fell in love with the girl there like at first sight, and like married her and just retired and got fat. There's your like origin story for the character, right? There's no realization that like he doesn't like the assassination lifestyle. There's no real depth to the character. There's no real like perspective on like why he decided to leave the old lifestyle behind. There's no real consequences for his actions, even though that like the assassins keep like pretending like, oh, we're gonna get you one day, Mr. Sakamoto. There's no real like concern, it's like, okay, he just does this, and then like 5 years later, after he has a child, right? Someone finally comes after him, and then he's like dragged back into the underworld and starts getting into these like confrontations with like these assassins, all of which are just not all that interesting, not all that memorable. Like, don't have all that great designs. They all seem to like give up, when they lose. It's like, okay, like it somehow like being more action focused than Spy Family. It somehow feels as if like there's a lot less going on. Like when you look at Spy Family, you're always seeing like Twilight and Yor and like Anya going on their own like adventures that kind of like interlace in really interesting ways, where you have them like being heavily involved in the plot and like driving things forward, and like getting into like this myriad of situations, and like trying to hide things from each other and things like that. Like it is endlessly entertaining, right? And like in this one, it's like basic like shock value like action scenes, right? We're like, oh no, they're about to get jumped in a haunted house. Oh no, they're about to get jumped on a roller coaster. Oh no, they gotta fight these assassins that used to know him, right? Like they gotta go after this organization now. Like it has no like weight behind it. And like there have been times already when I'm reading these volumes where I'm just like, wait, am I supposed to know that guy? Like what is his deal? Why? Like it felt like for a while there, like they introduced this like female police officer who just kind of like is introduced and then like vanishes. And then she's replaced with this triad girl, right? So like I honestly feel like, oh yeah, are they just gonna like keep introducing new female characters or like just keep introducing new female like no, like you get this weird situation where like this triad girl becomes part of the main cast even though like she doesn't really hmm, like she felt like a girl of the week in a lot of ways, right? Like it was weird to me that like the police officer girl who felt like she was being set up to be like a core component of the cast was just kind of like written off. And then we got this triad girl who now seems to be like one of the protagonists, right? It's like it just seems like poor planning in general. Like it feels like within 2 volumes we're already kind of all over the place with very little focus, very little idea of like where things are going to go from here, with no real clear direction or goal or whatever. Like they tried like setting up this assassination organization, but like I don't feel threatened by them. All right, like I don't feel like they're gonna do anything because they haven't done anything, right? Right? Like we didn't even know they existed, like within the first couple of chapters, right? Like it's like you can't just introduce this concept of this like assassination organization by like the end of volume 2 and like expect us to take them seriously. Like Bleach, when you compare it to Bleach, like Bleach set up the concept of the Soul Reapers, right? Like Bleach set up the concept of the Soul Society and like what a Soul Reaper is supposed to do, right? When you compare it to Bleach and how that like sets up like how the whole like Monster Hunter thing like leads up into like the Soul Society arc with like Rukia getting kidnapped and stuff like that. Like of course I'm talking on my ass because I haven't like actually read it yet, but like going by what I've seen, that's basically like it seems like it's actually a more natural progression, right? Where they go from like fighting hollows, which are everywhere, causing problems in like the real world, and then dealing with like the Soul Reapers, who are the people like failing to deal with this. Like there's a natural progression there. Like it makes sense. It seems organic, right? Here, like it just kind of comes out of nowhere, and honestly, it just I'm really struggling to justify like continuing reading further at this stage, right? Like at this point, like I almost feel as if the series is just not doing it for me. Like it reminds me a lot of how I feel about Undead Unluck, right? Where like whatever positive attributes the series has, right? No, like whatever like things I enjoyed about it, like they're all like at their core like incredibly superficial, right? Like Undead Unluck had like the just the crazy kind of concept of the girl who's like incredibly unlucky and stuff like that. Like it's been so long since I read Undead Luck. Like Sakamoto Days, I think at least Undead Unluck, right? In spite of all the problems I had with it, at least it had like an interesting premise and seemed to like be focusing on like the romance angle and was trying to do something a little bit different, right? Like Undead Unluck did feel like a creative concept that didn't necessarily like hit hit it out of the park, right? And from what I'm told, Undead Unluck actually gets a lot better like later on, and I've actually been considering getting back into it. But like Sakamoto Days, like at this point, I'm just kind of like it just doesn't seem like something that I'm enjoying. It just feels as if like it's something that's out there, something that's similar to Spy Family that I checked out of curiosity since the new volume of Spy Family doesn't launch until later this month. That I checked out that I was interested in and just found myself like really confused buy it. Like I'm kind of confused how this even got published. It just doesn't feel as if it's really that spectacular. And I'll have to see just what like future volumes have in store. But at the moment, I am really seriously considering dropping this one. I don't think it's really all that great.